Thank you for joining me for this episode of Nextbiteoflife.com podcast. I'm your host, Kem. This week's episode, we're going to talk about our visit to La Mezquita, which is located in Cordoba, in Andalusia, southern Spain. If you're a regular reader of the blog, you know we were supposed to be in Palma de Mallorca for the week. But thanks to my not printing our boarding passes and a failure of our Wi-Fi to work at the airport, we actually had to watch our plane take off without us. So we were very upset, and we had lost a lot of money because the tickets were non-refundable, and our airline, our hotel fees were also non-refundable. So we lost several hundreds of dollars, and it's still too raw. I don't even want to talk about it. So I'm going to avoid all that. But if you want to read the story of woe and how the day was just horrible, you can check it out on the website, nextbiteoflife.com. But, like I said, we ended up going to Cordoba for the week, and that was just as much fun as I could have ever imagined Palma de Mallorca to be. It's a city full of history and wonderful restaurants, and we had such a great time that I didn't really feel too bad about missing out in Palma de Mallorca. We might still visit that at some point, but for now, I'm very happy with what we're able to discover in Cordoba. The Mezquita has been around for centuries. Actually, it was 572 that it originally came to be. It was built as a church by the Visigoths. And later on, when the ruler Abd al-Rahman, I hope I'm saying that right, when he was exiled and he came to Andalusia and ended up settling in Cordoba, he made the changes to the church and he had it built as a mosque. He basically was responsible for the courtyard that is so beautiful out there because he was attempting to replicate what he had left in Damascus. So they completely destroyed the church that was standing there and made it into this huge mosque that's filled with columns called hypostyle. The hall that the main mosque is on, it had 110 columns, if I can remember clearly, and they were built at different heights. And most people believe it was because of the way the water basin, like the water level of Cordoba, didn't allow for a steady building, so they were kind of offset with all its different sizes. But it actually makes for a great effect when you go in there. Over the years, of course, the building has gone through extensive expansions, but they managed to keep the old way and blend it in with the new, which I really thought was great. When you first enter the Mezquita, first of all, it takes up a huge portion of the street. It's just gigantic, and the doors just look fabulous with all this Mudejar style design. And the doors are about 20 to 25 feet, and you feel like a tiny person walking in. You walk into this beautiful courtyard because, you know, the Mudejar style is like everything is built in a square, and there's a courtyard in the middle. This one has a really nice fountain. In one corner, there is the tower, the minaret, which was used as the call to prayer. And that has also gone through quite the extension and rebuilding as well. At one point, one of the rulers decided to make it point to the north, which I think is towards Mecca. And so they had to destroy the old one there and build a completely new one, which looks fabulous. There are lots of orange trees and palm trees in the yard, and there's also a huge fountain that's very pretty, and it used to hold the water supply for the mosque. In the ancient days, the mosque was used as a gathering place for the people, and it was also where they had the carriage of justice, like I guess if you had some problems and you were suing somebody, this was where your grievance was aired and the justice was dealt out. And it was also used as a teaching ground for the students of Islam. When you enter the actual building itself, the first thing that strikes you is all this. They remind me of Willy Wonka's factory because it looks like it's made of marble and stone, and they're alternating, like the arches. It's red and white, and it looks like a candy cane, and it actually looks really cool, but it's like surrounding everything you look, and it's just a sea of this columns, which looks great. The horseshoe column itself was actually a leftover of the Visigoth era, but the Muslim people are more famous. It became a trademark of theirs once they started using that style, and so it's no longer known as a Visigoth design, but of a Muslim design. And they're hanging lights, and it's like a dimly lit effect. So the offset of the red and white against the hanging chandeliers is just great. There's not a lot of light in there, so when you take your camera, be prepared to use your flash, or if you have a steady hand like my husband does because he's a photographer, he didn't use any flash at all in there, which makes, of course, for a better picture, but it's kind of hard if you don't know how to use a camera. So I think you're allowed to use your flash. At least nobody stopped any of the people that were there that I saw. The hall itself has gone through so many expansions, and as the population of the Muslim people grew, so did the hall. They would extend it over time. And the walkway around the courtyard, which leads to the minaret, is now a bell tower. It's just really beautiful. It reminds me of the one in Sevilla, the Giralda, but this one looks a little bit fatter to me, a little bit fatter and shorter. And I don't know which one is better, but I like them both. Inside of the great mosque, the Mezquita, you see a combination of like 5 different styles. It's like Gothic, it's Baroque, it's Renaissance, it's Mudejar. It's just absolutely stunning to me the way they managed to make everything like into one cohesive place, and it just blends seamlessly, which I thought was absolutely fabulous. There is something called the mihrab, which is the focal point of the prayer hall, and it's made of gold and dark colors, and it just looks absolutely wonderful. It faces towards Mecca, which is the birthplace of Islam, if you're familiar with the religion. And it's a common thing. I mean, you're supposed to face towards Mecca when you do your daily prayers. And so it just looks absolutely fabulous. There's gold, and there is a lot of gold. And there's a lot of black. And it just looks marvelous. Like, think of those Arabic carpets, and you can sort of picture what I mean with the colors. They just look really, really, really cool. The dome, there's a dome there, like, which is above that mihrab, and it's just breathtaking. It's like a crisscross, and then like in the middle there's this thing that looks like a big flower. And the Mezquita is it's considered like the most important monument of Islamic rule, and it should be, because it looks absolutely fantastic. When you enter, there are these cubicles, I guess you would call them, or like cathedral. They're called capilla, and I'm sure that means something like maybe the booth or the section of a particular saint or whatever. So you start off, and you're kind of led in a big circle with the columns like in the middle. And so you walk around to the right, and everything is all like cathedral or the room of Saint Vincent, the room of Saint, Avila, and all these names, and they're all set up with huge gold pieces, and most of them are cordoned off so you can actually get close, and they're also gated. gated ones too. So they make sure that everything that's really important, or maybe everything that's really expensive, is out of the reach of people. Anyway, in 1523, they started the construction of the cathedral. The then Bishop of Spain, his name was Bishop Manrique, he got permission from the king, the current king at that time, which was Carlos V. He got the permission to actually build the cathedral inside of the ancient mosque, which of course was no longer, used as a great mosque since the Christians now took over. After the permission was gotten, they actually destroyed the middle of the Mezquita and made it into a cathedral. And this thing is just absolutely, it's fantastic. It was actually started, the construction was done by a Spanish architect by the name of Hernan Ruiz I. The decision once made was to put the cathedral right in the heart of the mosque, where the old Abdurrahman, the guy that had built it in the first place, that was like their center. So he built it there, and after he died, his son and his grandson continued the work on the cathedral. It took almost 2 centuries to build this thing, and it's very Gothic and very Baroque. The vault and the dome is like Renaissance style. It's made of marble and gold, and it's just stunning because you go around and it's dimly lit, and then in the middle of the Mezquita there's this wonderful white marble. Just imagine the cold color against the warmth of the gold, and you can kind of tell what I'm talking about. It just looks magnificent. The pulpits were added in the 18th century, and they were made from marble and mahogany, like really dark mahogany, and they look awesome. And I just picture, like, I don't know, if there was like the Spanish Inquisition, this is what I would picture the people to be sitting in, like this huge mahogany chairs and doling out, punishments for people. But I don't know, I guess it's just my imagination. Let me see what else we found in there. You want to leave yourself probably about, I would say, closer to 3 hours to actually be able to understand and appreciate the style of the Mezquita. It is superbly, wonderfully done. And over the years, they kept adding new things to it. So you see, like, you think you'll be able to see, like, how that something stopped and then something was started, but you really can't, because they really did a good job of making it all blend together. And my thing was, when we were there were a lot of visitors that were obviously Muslim, and they were walking around, filming and looking, and I couldn't help but think, like, how do these people feel, If you see it, you see this grand gesture to your religion and to Muhammad, and you see that it's now a Christian domain. How does it make you feel? Do you kind of feel like, hey, we want this back, like it was ours to begin with, even though it really was the church to begin with? I don't know. I can't help wondering, like, what people would feel when they see that, but I couldn't guess by their looks. Not that I didn't try to, like, read into it, but I guess maybe they just appreciate it for what it is. Anyway, the Mezquita is definitely a great place for you to visit if you are in Cordoba. It's definitely worth a visit. The entry fee is €8 for adults. Ages 10 to 14, it's half price, and it's €4. This works out to be €10 for adults and $5 for 10 to 14. And if they're under 10, then it's free. There is a The coverage, actually, the size of the Mezquita is over 24,000 square meters. I definitely believe it because it is huge. It takes up like a whole city block. And the walls are so thick on the outside. I mean, you just think of how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years this place has survived, and it looks absolutely fabulous. If they told you that it was only 100 years old, you would believe it. The stones that they use are just, they're so pretty. And I wonder about the manpower that actually went into it, because like they're little tiny stones like in the courtyard. And just picture how big this courtyard is. The tiny little stones that were set by hand. And you wonder how many hours, how many thousands of people actually had to do that work just on the outside, never mind what they had to do on the inside. There are also relics inside, on the inside, apart from just seeing the columns and the rooms of all the priests and the saints and whatever. There are things like artifacts that they found. There was one artifact of like Jesus and his apostles, and most of it was chipped off. The face of Jesus was like chipped off, but it still looked so, I don't know what the word is, ethereal maybe? Like to see him like with his hands crossed and the apostles next to him. And even though half of it was destroyed, they found it like in 1523 or something like that. And it's just absolutely amazing to see. There is also a crypt, a couple of crypts of some people. I don't know what their history is, unfortunately, in there too. And you see how heavy and how thick and huge and humongous the crypts were. I mean, one of them was like super long, and I'm thinking this guy had to be like 7 feet. But then we figure in those days people were really, really short. So I'm thinking they probably put him and maybe some of his servants maybe, and his worldly goods, so that in the afterlife he could have all his things of comfort. At least that's what I think, because for sure he wasn't that tall. He would have been a giant, which didn't happen in those days. In the Sevilla Cathedral, for instance, there's the tomb of Christopher Columbus. And it's so short. The guy must have been like 4'5", really. And I think that was probably closer to the size of the people in those days. Definitely not 7 foot. Anyway, the Mezquita is open from Monday through Saturday from 10 to 6 a.m. with no break in between. On Sundays, it's open from 8:30 to 10:30, and then they close until 2, and then it's open from 2 until 6. Remember, they only take cash there, so if you don't have any cash with you, you can't come in, you can't buy tickets. You can go outside. There is an ATM pretty close to the place. If you take the ramp that, the wheelchair-bound ramp, and you go outside there and go to your left, and then immediately to your right, there is an ATM, which is really hard to see, but it's right flat up against the wall next to the store that sells like T-shirts and stuff. So you can get money from there, and the fee is pretty reasonable, was like $2. So it's worth going in there and getting your cash and coming back to visit the Mezquita. Remember to wear sturdy shoes, because it's all cobblestones and all the stones, that's really hard. So unless you're used to high heels on hard floors, I would advise you to just be safe and wear sturdy shoes. Would I go back? Yes, I would definitely go back. Not only to Cordoba, but to visit the Mezquita again. It is really awesome. I loved how beautiful, and how, like, to me it almost seems like, yeah, I mean, it sounds kitschy, but it kind of tells you that we really can all get along if they can build this mosque and build a church inside of it, which at some point I think they actually used together. Just goes to show you that we can get along if we try, and it's nice to see that. Anyway, if you want to see the pictures that go along with this podcast, you can check out the website, nextbiteoflife.com, and check I think the title of this one is La Mezquita, visiting La Mezquita in Cordoba. And there's over 20 pictures to go along with what I'm saying to you, so you can actually see just how awe-inspiring I think the Mezquita is. It's something that should be. There's millions of people that visit Cordoba just to see this, and they should. There's a lot of history there, and over the coming podcast or two, I will talk more about Cordoba and other things that we saw. But this was definitely one of the highlights of our visit there. And if you ever get a chance to go to Cordoba, I think you should definitely check this out. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I hope you go to the website. I hope you sign up for our newsletters so that whenever we have a new episode, we can let you know so you don't miss anything. We also encourage you to to email us if you have any questions, or if you just want to find out more information about anything that I talk about on the podcast, or if you have some helpful suggestion. We welcome hearing from you. So you can either leave comments on this podcast once you hear it, or you can check out the iTunes podcast and leave your messages on there, or you're welcome to email us at nextbiteoflife@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much once again for joining me, and don't forget to check out the pictures that go along with this podcast. Until next time, it's Kem, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.